What's good? It's my. Oh, that's a sweet car. Sorry, got distracted. I really like the new Toyota Superman. I think it's like, I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think the old Supra it looks bad, but everyone's like, oh man, like it's so much better than the new one, and it's like, I don't know, man. The new Toyota Supra is pretty awesome. Anyway, it's February 24th, 2025. Excuse me. Around 9 p.m. I don't know. Today's a weird day. In a good way, right? Like, any semblance of a schedule or routine that I had was non existent today for good reasons, right? I went home, see my parents on the way back to my place. I went to see my grandparents, and all of those things were very good, very positive. My mom helped me get my taxes done because I hate doing taxes. I don't think it's that bad if you're just doing regular, like, hourly job kind of taxes and you don't have anything more complicated going on. But I do DoorDash, and it can be a pain. And also, it helps that I can use the tax software that my parents have. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't think a single person ever that I've ever spoken to would belittle me for having my parents help me do my taxes, because taxes fucking suck. And everyone's like, if there's any human being in your life that's willing to help you do your taxes, you take them up on it, right? But there's still just like that element of me feeling like I'm not an adult and I can't accomplish things on my own, and I need my mom to help me do my taxes. And it's like, I know that that's like being too hard on myself, and it's like one of those things where it's like, to an extent, there's a lot of things that you really shouldn't necessarily feel bad about wanting help with, right? But it's, I think it's evident of, I don't know where I was going with that sentence, but I think the underlying sort of, I don't know, negative self-talk comes from it being a sore spot for me, being something that I'm, self-conscious isn't the word I'm looking for, but it works. Just like, I have always felt very behind and very inadequate in a lot of ways in life, and I spend too much time comparing myself to my friends, comparing to myself to people my age, comparing myself to what the average or the norm is, what most people in my generation by this point in their life would have done, and all that kind of stuff. And that's just a very dark path to go down. But I don't know. I feel like I had more to say there, but I'm a little bit scatterbrained. More so than usual. I feel like I'm always a little bit scatterbrained, especially if I'm doing something like this and trying to perform to an extent, even though I would consider these vlogs to be the lowest effort, least pressure version of any sort of like creative or like work or thing that I would try to put out there. I don't even know if it makes sense to call this a creative endeavor. I guess it kind of is, but it's more of just a journal, essentially. This is just me like live journaling in a public way, which again is different from a personal private journal, but it still is mostly just kind of like a stream of consciousness, an expression of thoughts. But I don't know, I guess the good news compared to my last couple weeks, I feel like, is I feel a little bit better today than I have the last couple weeks, especially. It's a weird place to feel, because I feel like the last actual week I had was one of the worst that I've had all year. And yet it still was in a lot of ways better than arguably most of my weeks the entire last calendar year, all of 2024. Because I think that's the thing is, you know, there's a million ways that we can be hard on ourselves, and especially people who've struggled with a negative self-image and a lack of self-confidence. You know, there's so many different ways you could wind up beating yourself up. And for me, while I can logically say to myself that, oh yeah, like it's not good to compare yourself too much to others, and you know, we've all heard a dozen times that everyone's on their own journey, on their own path, and we find our way to where we need to go in our own way and in our own time, and blah blah blah. And that's all well and good, but it's, you know, as anyone who's ever struggled with anything ever could tell you, that it's one thing to think positively and say things that you can probably know to be logically true, and it's another thing to really feel them and to like live by that idea, right? It's one thing to be told or to tell yourself these things. It's another thing to actually believe it and to abide by those ideas. And I think to an extent I've started to deconstruct at least some of the reasons why I wind up feeling so inadequate or incapable, right? Like, don't get me wrong, being an adult is difficult in so many different ways, and everyone has unique things about their lives that they struggle with. But nobody, you know, adulting is hard, right? But it's always just, I've always beat myself up because I feel especially incapable, and I have begun to cut myself some slack when I just think about the idea that while I've certainly had my struggles and my lows in life, when I look back at my life in hindsight, I have been truly blessed with some great friends and, you know, absolutely incredible family members who have always been there for me. I've never, regardless of anything I've ever struggled with life, I've never been alone, like not even remotely. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't necessarily mean that I've never felt alone. And there's, you know, those times where you isolate yourself and you don't talk to people about what you're going through, and you find different ways to feel alone. But like in terms of like really being alone and like helpless and not having any sort of a support system, that's just never existed for me. I've always had some of the most solid, most reliable people that have been there the entire way throughout my whole life. People who have at every turn raised me to, in the hopes that I can have a better life than they have had. And that's even with saying that I don't think that most of my family members have had all that difficult of a life, to an extent, right? Like, don't get me wrong, they've all struggled, we all struggle, but like, it's not like some, you know, story you would hear in a movie of you know, parents who, you know, immigrated to a different country in order to give their kids a better life kind of thing, and the quality of life is like a night and day thing. You know, every parent and every generation wants to raise children that can be better off than even they were, even if they still had good lives. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what I was given and what I was born into and what I was provided, my life has kind of been awesome. You know, like I was always I was always taken care of. You know, my childhood was very good. For all of the negatives and the struggles I've had, like the actual like true childhood of just those years where you're meant to just kind of be carefree and have fun and grow up and just have this wholesome life that every kid deserves. I had that. I you know, I got to go to Disney World. I got to do these fun things. I got to just not worry about shit. I've never been hungry in my life. Like really, you know, true hunger. I've never had to worry about having a roof over my head or wondering where I was going to sleep at night. None of that. And I think I'm starting to realize that I guess, you know, the negative way that, you know, maybe like a tough parent would spin it is that I'm spoiled or I'm privileged and that I wasn't, you know, the people who raised me weren't tough enough on me and that's why I can't do shit because I wasn't hardened. I wasn't, you know, forced to be responsible and all this stuff. And that's why I struggle so much now. And I guess perhaps there's some truth to that, but I almost think that maybe that is actually true, but that the framing and the negativity there is entirely unnecessary, right? Like I can sit here and say to myself, the reason that doing so many things on my own and being, you know, trying to eat healthy or get exercise or just do anything that needs doing on my own accord and not needing somebody else to tell me to do something or help me do something is the result of a very blessed life and one that I've not truly tried to live on my own until, you know, the last couple years. And I don't think that that's necessarily something to feel bad about. And I don't think that everyone who's held me out in life should have necessarily been harder on me. Like, don't get me wrong, it's really hard to know how raising someone is going to affect the person they become, but I would have rather much had this than had a life that felt like it sucked because those raising me wanted to harden me, right? Like, sure, I'm struggling now and things, you know, being self-sufficient feels a lot harder than I feel like it should be, but the trade-off is that my life up to the point of leaving the nest was so blessed and so good, and I have so many outstanding memories and so much warmth and love in my life that I don't think I would trade that. I don't think I would want to do that over. Think that, you know, and it's certainly possible that being raised another way wouldn't have mattered, right? Like, you don't ever really know how someone's brain is going to handle all that life has to throw at them. And so I'm kind of going at things now and trying to progress and grow as a person with the perspective of, you know, I didn't know how to ride a bike once. Any of the things I've ever done in life, there was a point I didn't know how to do. And so it historically has been very easy for me to, you know, find something very difficult and to say to myself that I'm a fuck up and that I'm, you know, that this should be a simple thing. Why can't I do this simple thing? And it's like, well, you've never really had to do it before. You've had people that take care of everything for you, and all you've had to really do is exist. And now you just simply have to learn these new skills, and you're going to be bad at them because you've never done them before. And not literally never done them, but never had to do them consistently for myself in this way, right? I'm talking about simple stuff like regularly doing my laundry or keeping my room clean, and getting exercise, eating healthy, trying to encourage myself to work on a personal project, as opposed to lazing about in my free time. Don't get me wrong, we all need times to relax and just kind of do nothing, watch TV or whatever it is, but that can't be all your free time, or else it's, you're not going to be very well off doing that for any number of reasons. And this is weird. Like, I think to an extent it's good that I keep these videos casual, because I think it's helpful for me to just have like a pure venting time where like I didn't necessarily think about what I wanted to talk about going into it. I'm not holding myself to any length. These are just meant to be like the easiest possible videos to make, and I could sit here and tell myself that makes them less valuable, and this is just the ramblings of a madman that no one's ever going to want to listen to, and that may be true, but I'm actually pretty amazed at what they're doing for me. I am benefiting from these, and at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. And yeah, you could say like, well, if that's the case, why are you uploading them? It's like, well, there's always the possibility that even one person out there benefits from one of these videos in some way. And yeah, I don't know. It's very weird. Life's weird. Putting content on the internet is weird. Everything is weird, and I just I can't be bothered to let that stop me from doing what just feels right inside. And so, yeah, it's like I had a pretty rough week in the sense of just there was multiple days in a row where my mood was low and I felt very scared and unmotivated, and like I was really beating myself up about not being able to do the things that I want to be doing. And I felt like in terms of productivity, it was the worst week of the year I've had. But funny enough, it's one of the better weeks that I've probably had, like I said, over the last year or two, maybe even, just because ever since the new year, even though I've not been able to be perfect, if I've not tackled each new day with this mentality, I've at least somehow managed to tackle each new week with the idea that I can get back on the horse. I can do better, or even if I'm not doing better than I did last week, I'm attempting to do the things I want to be doing and grow as a person in a really proactive way. And I'm do different things like talking to friends about real life stuff and the things I struggle with and the things I'm doing well, to recording these videos. It's just that bit more than I wasn't doing before, in the sense of like I'm reflecting, I'm evaluating the things that I'm choosing to do with my time, and through that even if it's just a little tiny bit, I am growing. Like I can see the improvement. There are things that I didn't used to do that I'm doing better now, and it's it's slow and it's painful and it's not easy, but it's happening. It's working, and it's wild how this all works. Like I'm sure it's not a unique desire to just hope that you could get up one day and will yourself to be a better person, and that if you just tried really, really hard and you just kind of like ate shit and struggled and forced yourself to do all the really hard things all at once in like a week's time, that you could just kind of like change and become a different, better person overnight. But you can't. And that's fine. That's not how this works. It can be really frustrating to, even when you feel like you understand that, the desire often doesn't go away. I'm just like, I just want this to be done faster. I just want to get it over with. And I don't know, maybe some of that, I know, like, I'm sure a lot of people struggle with that mentality, but I feel like, especially too, when someone like me who has played so many video games, and I've played video games throughout my whole life, they're, the core of so many different games is the idea of being presented with a task or a problem and then playing the game and getting better and overcoming these challenges. And the timeline there is so, truncated compared to real life that it's, there might be some element of just the modern generations that have grown up with all of this amazing entertainment and all of this awesome technology, that it's trained us to desire that instant gratification. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm feeling good about where I'm going, because I'm trending upward. I'm improving. I'm doing it. And to some extent, I don't know how. I mean, I guess I do know how. If I reflect, it's like I've just continued to believe that I can do it. And even when I have a bad day or a string of bad days, somehow I haven't fallen back into that true depression of just everything is awful, life is shit. I'm just gonna do whatever I can to barely coast along. I'm gonna, work the easiest, most stress-free job I can find. I'm not going to worry about the fact that I am not making any savings, or that I'm barely being able to pay my bills, or that I might even be going into debt. I'm just going to worry about whatever thing is going to get me food in my belly at night and let me have a roof over my head for right now. And then outside of that, I'm just gonna smoke weed and play video games and just not think about it, because I just can't be bothered to do anything else. Like, it's been some time since I've been in that state, and while I would have hoped that coming out of the really dark depression I used to be in would have meant that my rise and my growth would have been faster than this, at the very least, I am growing, and I am, slowly but surely achieving the things I want to achieve. And I guess I just have to believe that one day I'll get there and not worry about when it's going to be, because there will always be a new hill to climb, and I just have to focus on the climb itself and the belief that I'm the one to make that climb. Yeah. I don't know, that seems like a pretty good place to end. I've managed to upload one of these videos every Monday without fail since the start of the new year, hoping I can keep that going. I might be delayed or forget or be otherwise unable to do it in a couple weeks, because I'll be out of town, and either my schedule will be so off that I forget that it's Monday, or any other number of reasons. I'm not gonna beat myself up if I break that streak. I'm just mentioning it from the idea of I'm surprised that I'm here for all the things that I've not been able to do as well or as consistently as I wanted to since the start of the new year. I've been able to do this. And I don't know, man. Sometimes it's enough to just keep going and keep believing, even if you're at a bit of a standstill. You're struggling to reach that next level, just you gotta just like keep going. You know, you just keep swimming. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this week. I'll talk to y'all in the next one.